So today we're going to go over planting, growing, and harvesting dill. Really just an essential herb for your herb garden, and honestly just a workhorse for your vegetable garden if you want to consider companion planting it. We'll go over how to plant it in pots as well as in the garden. This is actually one that I like to do both because I like to have it in the garden just because all the beneficial things that it does for my vegetables, but I also like to have it close by in the kitchen. So we're going to do both today. So first you want to start with getting some regular potting soil, or really the dirt outside. Dill is so easy to grow. It's kind of hard to sustain, but we're going to go over some tips for that. So if you're planting it in a pot, you want to choose a nice deep pot because dill has long roots, so you're going to want to give it room to grow. And whatever kind of dirt you have, I like to have a little bit of compost, potting mix, and seed starter, but anything that you got is going to work, okay? And you're going to put your seeds in, maybe 5-6 seeds, and then you're just going to barely cover them with your dirt and keep them even with routine moisture for several days. In 1 or 2 weeks, you're going to have what I have, which is just a bunch of like little 1 to 2 inch seedlings come up. Okay, but now I need to thin them out. So some of these have to go. So a pot this size, I would say you want to only keep 1 or 2 seedlings. So I'm going to thin them out and choose the healthiest looking 2. I also kind of like to keep one that's in the middle of the pot and spread out there. So I've kept 1 here and 1 here, and that's it. We're just going to keep this watered. And I'm going to keep this one down at the house. Now, after it's established, it doesn't need a ton of water. You'll know that it's overwatered if you start to see yellow leaves at the bottom of your dill. If you start seeing those yellow little leaves, then you know that you've got too much water. Super easy to grow, especially in pots. We'll go over some tricks to how to keep your dill all season long. So let's go plant some in the garden. As you can see, I've got a pretty well established dill plant here. That's what we usually go over when we're about to plant in the garden. Seed versus plant. Well, for the garden, I would say both. As you can see, it is really easy to grow by seed, but it takes a little while to get an established plant, and almost a month or 2 in order to get a plant this size. So I'm not willing to wait for my spring garden quite that long. So I do pick up a plant or 2 at the hardware store or at my gardening store early in the season. I usually get it in a little bit late, which is also another reason why I like to go ahead and buy a plant as well as some seed. You can plant your dill 2 weeks before the last frost. So it's a cool weather. It likes cool weather. And it does like full sun, but because I'm getting mine in a little bit late and I'm in the south, be prepared that your dill will kind of wilt and topple over. Now we're going to go over some harvesting techniques in a minute to keep your dill from toppling over and growing out, but they don't do well in the high heat, humidity, even though you need to put them in the full sun. So we'll take care of that during harvesting. Here you can see where I have just sprinkled some dill seeds on the ground here, and it has just really started popping up. So all of these are teeny tiny little plants, and just like in the pot, I need to go through and thin out what I don't want. These are actually kind of big, so I might save my little pile and put them in my salad tonight. But it's so easy to grow. Maintaining it is kind of the hard part, which is what we're going to go over in the harvest section next. As you can see, I've got a little bit bigger dill plant here. I wish I could show you some of my failed dill harvests or dill plants in the past. So what I used to do is I would put a seed in. I'd like to plant it near my cucumbers because they're a great companion plant. Cucumbers and dill just really go together because they also keep out cabbage worms. So actually when I'm done harvesting this, if I already have enough for my kitchen and for my cooking, I will cut this up and sprinkle it all around my cabbage before I leave the garden. That's just some extra bonus material for you. But what I would do is I would just let the seed, I'm gonna pretend this is my lone dill plant, I would let the seed and one little stalk would just grow all the way up. And I would be harvesting it kind of from the side because the young bottom leaves look so fresh and so good that that's how I was harvesting it. And my dill plant would get 2 or 3 feet high, and these flimsy little stalks, all it takes is a gust of wind or somebody accidentally stepping in the wrong direction and it would just topple over, and I'd find my dill plant just dead before I could even get cucumbers and tomatoes harvested, which the whole point is really to have both of them at the same time, right? So harvesting your dill in the right manner helps keep it bushy and wide as opposed to tall and stocky and falling over halfway through June, okay? So I'm gonna get a little bit closer so you can see. When we go to cut your dill plant, you do want to kind of go look down for where the branch is or where the V is and harvest from there. You don't have to use scissors, you can just pinch it off, and leaving a V there, because a lot of times you're going to get some new growth. I can show you some close-ups of what I'm talking about with that new growth. But you want to keep doing this early, often. You never want to cut more than 1/3 of your plant away. So just kind of think the size of your plant and don't cut more than 1/3 because you could kill it that way. But you do want to keep harvesting it from the top, Harvest from the top until you're ready to let it go to seed. Like I said, so many years I've never let it go to seed, but I can show you what it looks like when it does get dried out and tall enough, and it's not going to grow anymore at that point. So let's take a closer look. So like I said, we're going to keep, because I have harvested this properly, I've got a little bit wider plant. So I'm going to keep harvesting it from the top. And as you can see, I hope you can see this little fresh little new dill plant that's coming up right in the middle of that branch. That's why you don't want to cut below the V, because you got a whole new dill plant coming straight out of there. So you'll just continue to harvest from the top. Now, once you decide you don't need any more dill, or if you want to let it go to seed, we can let this dry all the way up at the end of the season. And again, just like the cilantro, once it's completely dry, you can shake it, let it go down here, and your seeds will come back up for your next growing season, usually twice. So you can get more dill in the fall and more dill in the spring. It's going to come up early though, so look for it early. And you don't want to plant it too close to your cilantro or your celery, really, because there's a good chance, or there's a chance that they could cross-pollinate. So if you want that true dill flavor, try to keep it away from those if you can. That's just about all I have for you in terms of growing dill. Super easy to plant, super easy to grow, and as long as you know how to harvest it and you harvest it often, it's gonna grow for you all season long. In the hot part of the summer, you might want to provide it some shade or consider succession planting. So putting seeds in every few weeks so that you can have dill all season long, and it doesn't get too hot or humid for you. Again, you can put it in early, so you can have dill sprinkled on top of your deviled eggs for Easter if you get it in early enough, or go out there and check from last year's planting to see if you have any popping up. It's also really good on fish. My friend Marcy puts it in her scrambled eggs. It's so good. Dill also has some medicinal properties, helps with digestion. Some people say that it helps with anxiety and depression. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I mean, it can't hurt to incorporate it into your diet. And just easy for the garden, easy for kids to grow if you want to see some progress and have some immediate results. Dill is just really a wonderful herb to have in your garden. Thank you so much for joining me, and let me know if you have any questions.